presenting about how you can spin your CTI process around, and I like talking about journeys. And don't get me wrong, we discussed it yesterday as well. I mean, CTI journey, CTI is a journey, and we will be discussing about some things that I have seen CTI teams do not implement when the time is right, especially in the early phases of this kind of journey. If we want to say what is the problem statement, I would say that, yeah, how can CTI teams operationalize their process, how they do CTI a little bit more efficiently? I mean, every CTI team is walking through the intelligence cycle in the same way, but also in a very different way, yeah? Because of the culture of the organization, the resources, the focus, and different stuff. So I'll try to see what are some of the things that we can do in order to make our CTI process a little bit more effective. A little bit on who am I. My name is Andreas Sfakianakis. I don't expect anyone to pronounce my surname. I'm working as the CTI team of SAP, the German software company. I've been lucky to jump on the CTI train like early enough. So I've been like 10 years CTI on the financial sector, energy sector, and technology sector. I work also with organizations like SANS. I'm an instructor in training for the CTI course. I'm working with ENISA, and some of the beloved people are here in the crowd. Working on ENISA threat landscape. I'm working for first.org, try to make sure that we have a very nice conference like this together with the rest of the program committee. And you can find my presence in different social media and my website. So I need also to mention that whatever I say today, I represent myself and not my employer. So my employer is SAP. We do quite a lot in terms of CTI. We have a big cloud infrastructure to protect many customers. But now, mostly, I got some approval from my employer to present some of the stuff that we do by representing myself mostly. This is a little bit on the outline of today's presentation. We will set the scene, then we will see why we need workflow and case management, and then some additional basic ingredients for making our CTI process a little bit more efficient. Whenever I use any kind of references, you can go to this bit.ly/firstcti23 short URL, or you can use the QR code, and you can find the list of references that I'm using today. Having said that, I don't know if you already got the QR code, or I can wait a little bit more, but this is more or less the outline, and we will start with setting the scene. And I would say that we have gone a long way as a CTI discipline. I think we have seen the past 2 days that we have done some stuff. We discuss now about teams and organizations that have dedicated CTI teams. We speak about intelligence requirements, and we see that more and more CTI teams have documented intelligence requirements. And this is actually the data from SANS CTI survey 23, I think. It was published this summer. So we see we're doing some progress as a discipline. We didn't have like collection management framework, and now we speak about collection management framework maturity model. If you don't know what's a collection management framework, it's more or less a document where you try to identify your sources, what you collect from the source, and what are the questions you can ask from each of these sources. Where do you store it, for how long, and stuff like this. So we have now a maturity model for this one. The community is speaking about maturity models for collection. We also adopted like different kind of frameworks from the software engineering methodology, like threat modeling. And we use a simplified version of strategic threat modeling, like us and them, and we try to identify what are the threats. So we're making progress. However, what's old is new again. I mean, you remember the Spanish flu back in 1980? So we have been wearing masks again by that time. What is interesting, I speak with a lot of CTI teams, and I see some of the systemic things that are happening time over time again. I would mention, for example, CTI managers not very familiar with CTI in general. I see teams not able to manage their workload. They don't know how to operationalize their CTI process. They neglect the metrics part. So I see things that are happening over and over time again, and we never learn. So the question, where do we go from here? I mean, we have trainings from the technical part, from the analytical part. We know that we need to do some kind of groundwork, some kind of homework, like requirements, threat modeling, collection management. But we have some issues that are there for quite some time. I would recommend, and this is my central point, my main point of this presentation, that probably what we're missing, or most of the CTI teams are missing, is like case management and workflow management. I would argue that some things, some important things in this life are a little bit boring. For example, if you go into a cuisine, a kitchen, and you don't master your knifing skill, your knife skills, yeah, if you don't have buckets to put all your chopped tomatoes or your chopped parsley, yeah, I mean, it's boring, but we need to do it, eh? And if we translate this to CTI, we have the CTI analyst skill sets, and we speak all the time. This is from INSA, an organization that published this kind of skill set back in 2014. They say that the cyber intelligence discipline and the analyst should have technical competencies, analytic competencies, communication, and we have done trainings about this one. We have done presentations about how technical a CTI analyst should be, how analytical. I mean, Freddie mentioned about foresight and structured analytic techniques. We do some of this stuff. Communication, about report writing, about briefing, the fact that we, as CTI analysts, should be outgoing and we have to be more communicative. And if we see the small letters, we see that there's some project management skills, there is some knowledge management, and nobody pays attention to this one because they're not very sexy. Yeah? Everybody's looking for the technical stuff, the analytical stuff, and we neglect some of the very basic skills and traits that we need to have as CTI analysts. So I'm coming to this presentation and I'm telling you that, maybe if you use some case management and workflow management, this will definitely help your CTI team. What is workflow? A workflow is a series of activities, a set of activities that you have to do in order to accomplish a specific goal, a specific target, outcome. And case management, it's a way to manage all the knowledge work that you guys are doing on a daily basis. For example, a case management tool, for example, I want to have you in mind, I will not solutionize, but it's Jira. A tool where for example, what we do, we treat every CTI assessment that we do as a mini project, as a case where we have to collect information, do the analysis, and then close the ticket. We disseminate the report, and that's done. So think about case management as a ticketing system for your CTI assessments. What is interesting, and this is the value proposition, and we will deep dive, I'm insisting on these three pillars. Why we need workflow and case management? We need them because we need to make sure that we have a tool to coordinate and collaborate, make sure that we have a way to measure the workload of the team and measure how we score. We need to make sure that our knowledge, like the finished intelligence of the CTI team, is there, and we can do some proper knowledge management. And of course, we do have all this kind of metadata of the tickets to make sure that we have the opportunity to get the right metrics for the management. I know we guys in the CTI teams, we're struggling to identify in an easy way to get some metrics and provide meaningful metrics to our management, to the team. So let's start one by one, and I would ask you how you guys do CTI. How are you coordinating your assessments? How your analysts collaborate? Do you have a tool? Do you have a specific workflow? In this case, this is what we do in my day job. In my employer, I got approval. This is actually, we do have over here a new threat item that we need to assess. It's put in the backlog. It's assigned to an analyst. So it moves to the in-progress state. The analyst is doing the collection and the analysis, and then it's ready for review. The review process, the control of the flow goes to another analyst. We have 4 eyes checking for every CTI assessment that we do. And if it needs to be revised, it goes back to the first analyst, or the control goes to the review is completed, and now we need to disseminate to the stakeholder. By the time it's disseminated, we wait for feedback, and by the time we get feedback, we close the ticket. And this is more or less every CTI assessment that we do. Is this threat actor relevant for X, Y, Z? We have a backlog, and we go this process all the time. It's a simple, every assessment that we do, it's more or less like a small project. And we know who is doing what. We have analytical notes, we have comments, and we can collaborate and coordinate. I don't know, so the question is for you, do you have a way to coordinate your assessments, how you do analysis, and how your analysts collaborate or not? The second one that's quite interesting, by having the control of a system like this, you can, just like the CTI report blueprints that Ross mentioned earlier from Maitre, we can create tags, we can create custom fields, for example. For every ticket that we create, we say, what are the threat details? What is the threat relevancy to my employer, to SAP? And what are the recommendations that we have? We have custom fields, like we do this kind of CTI assessment because we want, because it's part of, it's related to this PIR. We use this source. So we capture all this kind of metadata in our workflow and ticketing system, which is, in our case, Jira. We also capture information like how much time, when we close the ticket, how much time we spend for this assessment. And by doing all this tagging and having all these custom fields, which we control, for example, which attack tactics we saw, which threat actor this assessment is related, we use all this kind of custom fields, and we have all the information in one place. All the finished intelligence of the CTI team lives in one place. What is interesting, when I have to do my monthly report, I go back in time and I see all the assessments that I did. And I try to put them in a very nice presentation. When I want to do, for example, the annual report or a report on a specific country for a specific threat, I use the custom field or the right tag, and I say, give me all the assessments that are related to cloud threats. Give me all the assessments that I did for this specific threat actor. And this is how the information is preserved in your organization and can be used for different kinds of assessments. It's searchable, and you can filter and do whatever you want. You can see also with this one which sources you use, why you pay X, Y CTI provider that much if you don't use it in your CTI assessments. What is interesting, by having all this kind of metadata, look at this one. It's a very, very big opportunity to capture metrics. Usually, we struggle and we have to do quite a lot of time and spend time into identifying the relevant metrics, to go and pull data from different places, maybe reports that live in SharePoint, some other reports in emails, some other reports in our CTI providers portal. And we don't have all this kind of information. While if all the work that you do is one place, you have an opportunity now. You can measure some stuff. And look at this one. This is a reference to the How to Get Promoted presentation about metrics that took place in Sun CTI Summit 2019. But if you have all the information in your system, these are some of the interesting kind of metrics that out of the box and very easily and automated you can provide every month. For example, how many threats were very critical or very actionable or of high impact, high criticality? How much time you spent for every priority intelligence requirement? For example, you spend quite a lot of time for a requirement that's prioritized as low. Why? This is not aligned. How many assessments for every threat category, for every threat actor? How much time you spend supporting incident response? My question for you is, do you have these metrics for your CTI team or not? Do you give these metrics to your management? Do you give other metrics for your CTI program? Time spent on RFIs per stakeholders. So you spend time on RFIs for some specific stakeholders. Can you measure it or not? Or how many hunts or incidents or vulnerabilities have been remediated by CTI assessments? And that's great, because now you have a way, you do all the work, you coordinate, you do your knowledge management, and you have the opportunity to get some metrics for your management, and you're going to get a promotion. But not only this one, you will learn how your team works. Look at this one, some of the metrics that I see for my team that make me understand how my team works. For example, what are the sources that I use mostly? Do I need to pay 100K for this provider if I don't use it or not? Or this provider, it's worth the money, the investment, because I use it in every assessment that I do. How many deliverables per requirement? How many deliverables per stakeholder? Or how much time you spend for every type of your CTI deliverable? For example, you have warnings for the SOC, you have executive reports for your CISO, you have threat actor reports. So how much time do you spend for this one? What is the workload at any point in time of your CTI analyst? Huh? Do you know if Andreas is busy right now and if he can get another CTI assessment on his backlog or not? Can you make sure that you have all the data to make sure that you can plan your kind of deliverables for the next month, for the next 2 months or not? And of course, we have different types of tickets, operational one plus projects. So what is your project time that you spend versus your operational work? I think these are very easy metrics that you can utilize by having a system where you have all your data. I would argue that, I try to convince you guys on what is the value of having this kind of capability within your CTI team. Like a workflow, how you deliver each of the deliverables, like the step-by-step process, plus make sure that all this case management and knowledge management takes place within one system within your CTI team. Now, I spoke about the main value proposition of this presentation. Like, you have to identify what is the glue of your intelligence process, how you're going to do day-to-day work, and how you can keep track of your work. I mean, from an operational perspective, but also on the long term. I would say that together, when you implement something like this, it's opportunity to add some other basic ingredients that will help you do a little bit more efficient your CTI process. My view, we're CTI analysts, we're intelligence analysts, so we want to, it's my 3 favorite quotes, like we want to put data into buckets, that's why we have predefined custom fields that we want to be mandatory and fill in. We want to have consistency, so that's why we have workflows. Every CTI assessment should be done with the same kind of process. And then, I think Freddie also mentioned, spend time to save time. It's better to do it early in your CTI journey rather than later. I would say documentation matters, and documentation matters in 3 layers. On the policy level, so what is the mission of your CTI team? Like 2 paragraphs, what are you trying to achieve with your CTI team? What's your process? How you do CTI? Do you use ODA loop? Do you use intelligence cycle? How the accountabilities are divided? What are your sources? And then the SOPs, the standard operating procedures. I have seen ENISA publishing like 2 years ago what is the CTI process and how they produce the ENISA threat landscape. So they produce their methodology. Again, my question towards you, do you have documentation on how your CTI team works? And you may ask me, Andreas, okay, how this will help us? So it will help us first because of audits. Now ISO 27K, they do have threat intelligence as a control. So they will be asking you guys for documentation next year, so be aware. And second, if you have documented how your CTI process works, maybe you're going to think about the technology enablement. How are you going to make it happen? What is the technology enablement that you're going to use for your CTI process? This is one slide from a presentation we did back in Sun CTI Summit 2021 about threat intelligence platforms. I think some of the findings are aligned with Clement's survey about the threat intelligence platforms. What was interesting, threat intelligence platforms, they do some things quite well, some others not very well. For me, when I say technology enablement for the CTI team, I mean mostly like all the technology that I use to implement my intelligence cycle. And guess what? Threat knowledge management and the workflows and threat playbooks were still work in progress. And now, I know you guys are technical guys, you like solutionizing, and based on my experience, I see organizations using some of these tools to solve the problem that I described. So I've seen organizations using SharePoint lists, a customized SharePoint list to make sure that they have all these kind of CTI assessments in one place. They use a combination of Jira and Confluence, customized ones based on their needs to make sure that they track the work that they do and the knowledge that the finished intelligence that they have produced. I know CTI teams, some of the CTI teams, they use Azure DevOps to make sure that they have this capability. And then we go to ServiceNow. It's an opportunity, if you use ServiceNow, to have incident response data, vulnerability data, asset registry together with your CTI assessments, if it makes and if it works for you. Brian Moore has a company called Breakfast that they provide exactly this tool, a tool that is a glue for the intelligence cycle, starting from requirements to the delivery, the stakeholder management. You do everything within one tool. So actually, they implement your CTI process. And we know that some threat intelligence platforms have some capability. I expect the upcoming year, open source tools plus commercial tools will catch up with this one and will provide more capabilities. So watch out, maybe we have some advances in this area. My recommendation, we speak about CTI journeys, and I hope you understood it's nothing that is built in one day. Rome was not built in one day. But when it's very early in your CTI journey, my recommendation would be leave of the land. Leave of the land, and make sure you utilize the software and the technology that is already in place in your organization. For example, if you're a Microsoft shop, a big one, maybe you can maybe you can identify opportunities with SharePoint, maybe Azure DevOps. So it depends. For me, in my case, in SAP, we did have a development team in Jira, so it was quite easy to make sure that I will take advantage of Jira software. Now, moving on. Since you have done this one, I would also recommend to have within your organization a CTI one-stop shop. What does this mean? It's more or less like one page somewhere in SharePoint, I don't know, in a wiki page, where you have information about who you are, how people can find you, what is your team's scope, what are the intelligence requirements, and maybe you can have like a CTI report library, which is quite nice, because people can identify what's happening and what is the production from your side. When you have this one, make sure you redirect them to your RFI portal. I have seen in my team, by the time we had an RFI portal, we had quite a lot of requests coming to the team. So it's just like saying to people, yeah, you invite them to task you, which is quite nice because you have this kind of engagement and they spin your process. And this is how the RFI portal of my current employer looks like. Think about CTI with the service mentality. This is more or less the service catalog that we have. We have threat analysis, a technical kind of request, or a strategic kind of report. Maybe some people want indicators of compromise. Maybe some people want a briefing. Maybe some people want to subscribe to some of our products. And maybe some lines of business wants to be fully onboarded into CTI. So we give them different opportunities, different kind of options to join. Again, if you see, whatever they do, it comes in our case management system, which is more or less the same workflow that we have previously, and I showed you, but we have the scoping. We wait for support and wait for the customer. Before we start the assessment, we make sure that we do the scoping with the stakeholder, okay? And I think that if you use some of these ingredients, I think the CTI chef will approve. I think this is some of the things that you can use and can help you do more effectively your CTI process. Now, closing this kind of presentation, I think from a final remarks perspective, I think we highlighted a common challenge for CTI team, how you put your CTI process in motion, how you operationalize your CTI. I highlight the importance of workflow and case management, and we saw also some basic ingredients. that on top of the workflow and case management, they will definitely help you. Again, the references, you can find them in GitHub. And yeah, I hope I gave you some hints on how to operationalize your CTI process, how you spin your process around. And of course, I mean, a call to action for you, think about what we discussed. Think about the capabilities that we described. I would be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have, and thank you very much.